Joining us now is Ian Bremmer, Eurasia Group President. Ian, I've been trying to figure out from investors' perspective what this means. Do you think the events of the weekend make it more likely that the Ukraine war will last longer because Putin can't compromise and anger nationalists, and Ukraine's allies maybe are less likely to back off? Or what's going on here?
Well, I think it makes it a little more likely that the Ukrainians will have a more successful counteroffensive, and that will put them in a better position to be willing to negotiate and to potentially accept a ceasefire by the close of the year. But that doesn't mean Putin will be willing to, and he's going to be facing a lot more pressure, both internationally and domestically, and that certainly came across from his speech just an hour ago. One other thing that matters for investors is I think it is now less likely that we will get the next extension of a grain deal, which is quite important, of course, for global food and fertilizer costs, in part because a more confident Ukrainian negotiation stance will want the Russians to be more punished economically, will want Putin under more pressure as they are driving to improve their lie, as it were, before they wrap up the counteroffensive that is really just getting started right now.
And what, if anything, does it mean for energy?
Right now, it doesn't mean much for energy. But of course, I mean, if Prigozhin had kept going and if there was a broader fight between the Wagner forces and the Russian forces, and then the Russian front lines collapsed in Ukraine, then you can imagine fights over critical infrastructure and port facilities. And I think that would have actually brought much broader energy disruption, at least for a short period of time. We are not there. We are not likely to be there anytime soon. But the tail risks around Putin, what happens if he faces, some kind of serious internal palace instability or coup, and how might he react to that domestically in Ukraine or even against NATO? I mean, those tail risks have all grown in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, Ian, I mean, just to game out some of those tail risks, say something like that were to happen. Say Putin's weaker. Say, he's now facing his own challenges to power and leadership in Russia at some point, whether it's now or later in the year or down the road. In the wake of this, what does that potentially mean on the world stage? Because Putin is he's a known entity, right? So if you were to see some sort of power vacuum emerge, how does that play out between all of the different chess pieces on Earth, including between the U.S. and China, when we're talking about such a resource-rich part of the world as well?
Well, one is Putin, as much as he is a war criminal and a leader of a rogue state from the perspective of NATO, he still has been stable and there for some 15 plus years now. And that means that you have command and control over the nuclear weapons and over their biological capabilities, and over, to a degree at least, the world's largest criminal cyber network. So, I mean, if suddenly that's no longer true or in serious question, what happens with the proliferation of those weapons and the decision makers accordingly? Are they just going to be sold out to the highest possible bidder? I mean, if Putin were to fall apart just on the Wagner Group side, I mean, what happens then with all of those mercenaries who are quite highly trained in a whole bunch of countries, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East? What might they do to destabilize those countries? Take that and expand it significantly with a question around Putin himself. And, you start to see how problematic this could be. Another question, very related but very different, is if Putin starts to collapse and he can no longer ensure that the defenses can hold in the occupied territory of Ukraine. We already saw the destruction of this dam that has flooded out and killed so many on the ground, Russians and Ukrainians. What happens if they decided to blow up the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia? I mean, there are really quite significant, even catastrophic tail risks in the worst case scenario, which has become more thinkable over the last 3 days.